Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Toast Network's Toaster Talk. We are on to our 21st episode after a nice breezy change with all of us being live in person for our 20th session. Our 21st episode gets us back to our Zoom format. And I have two extremes sitting with me today, not personality-wise, but more with respect to the outcome of this weekend. We had one person who was super excited for the race weekend. The qualifying seemed like things were in place, but the end outcome, not so great. But we'll ask them specifically about that. And we have another person who wasn't feeling so great all this while, but the race made up for it. And the double podium finish for a certain team has them wearing the team colors. So welcome aboard, Prashanth and Twinkle. I know our fans who are watching this can clearly figure out who's supporting whom. There are enough clues on the screen right now, but let's hear from them how they feel and a key highlight from this weekend. So we could probably start off with Prashanth.
Thanks, Vivek. Glad to be back here after a 2-week break. Well, last week or the last race when we caught up, the tides after the qualifying was very different. We had a great first victory for Sainz, and there was some optimism coming that has Ferrari got their strategy right, or are they getting to that track, right? Till yesterday, it was in the same direction. I believe today was a disaster. You all see me wearing a BMW Sauber t-shirt. That's purely saying that, I couldn't just wear the Ferrari jersey today, right? While my wallpaper talks about it. It was a disaster. It was a situation, and the only grace saving was Sainz. He drove a marvelous race. At least he could come to the 5th place and salvage some points. Even the fastest driver on the track, he got an additional point. But I think beyond that, it's getting back to nowhere that Ferrari is not able to solve their strategies in place. So it was a very disastrous weekend. You may see me smiling, but that's the pain inside is just being masked with the smiles. And I know Twinkle is just eager to jump on. So I let her take the stage, but that's exactly how, as a Ferrari fan, I feel that it's been a very, very bad weekend for us.
Yep. Let's hear from Twinkle and then we'll delve into that. But clearly there's a yin and yang playing out here.
No, I think there was some solace in knowing that, Ferrari was doing so well this year in the beginning, because we knew that Mercedes was nowhere even close to fighting for the championship. And personally, I thought that, Ferrari is going to be the better team amongst them and Red Bull, between them and Red Bull. And I was sort of hoping for a Ferrari dominance, but I think while we're reaching the first half of the season, it's been quite difficult because, I think it comes from the perspective that, Ferrari hasn't really been doing very well over the last couple of years. So it's difficult for them to get the strategies right suddenly, all of a sudden, when they do have a car. It was very devastating to hear the scream from Charles. I think that's going to haunt all F1 fans this entire week. That was absolutely devastating. I hope that they make I guess fewer mistakes, but I think from a Mercedes fan perspective, this was just a brilliant weekend. I was, of course, expecting double podiums this weekend. I knew that their race pace is better than their qualifying pace as well. Actually, I think more so, I think we've never seen reliability issues with Mercedes.
Yes.
So it is more likely that they do better during the race weekends than in the short stints during qualifiers. So I was actually expecting a double podium from Mercedes. I was also expecting a Lewis win. But I think if he had not made that mistake, I think around lap 43, where he went off a little bit, he was catching on to Max. I know he doesn't have the pace. I think they're 18 kilometers slower than Red Bulls on the straights. I think Mercedes is quite slower on the straights from Red Bull, but Lewis was catching up. He was able to make up a lot of pace. I think he was at one point of time, he was 1 second away from Max as well. Yeah, he did fumble a little, and I guess they didn't want to take risks anymore, considering we're already trying to do damage control at this point. Which is why I think we saw that gap. But yeah, a Lewis win isn't very far away, and I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, no. I think for me the highlight would have to be that Perez caught sleeping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had the podium there for him, and then God knows what happened for that 2 seconds. He sort of slept off, and Russell just
I think Russell was very intelligent also with that. He slowed up,
Yes,
slowed up a little bit on the
he
turn.
slowed down, kept a gap,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he
He kept a
slowed
gap.
down a little bit, kept the gap. I think that caught Checo off guard a little. Maybe he was thinking that there is, because the it hadn't been green flagged
green,
yet.
yeah.
But as soon as it got green, he just took off that pace and
Yes.
overtook Perez. So I think that was a very, very clever move by George. I'm very proud of that move. I was especially happy about it.
Yeah, no, I think so. That clearly got Mercedes there 2 and 3, and right, like you rightly said, uh, there's one thing that Mercedes has consistently done through this season is reliable cars that have always finished off. I mean, if you look at George Russell's record that we continuously talk about in every show, just shows that that's been happening.
Yes.
Red Bull Max, I mean, he did the overtake, but no one really troubled him
Yeah.
throughout the race, and he finished off there. Charles Leclerc, I think the anguish in his voice over the radio explained it all, and he knew
Yes.
he had no one else to blame.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about Sainz having a great race, and I don't know, was that the right strategy? I mean, we know that Ferrari doesn't seem to have a strategy, but was that the right strategy to pit him when he was at P3 to versus and coming out at P9, which he did finally do? But do you think he still had a chance to stay at the podium if he had lingered on?
I would say he had to pit at some point of time, Vivek. His cars were already 20 plus laps degraded. Yes, he was on the medium set of tires, so he had the advantage to overtake all the other cars. But that was around lap 41, 42, if I'm not wrong. All right. And we still had about maybe 14, 15 laps to go. So there is no way his medium compound tire would have lasted. But saying that, he had two other things going against him. One was the tire was degrading. If not at that lap, maybe in the next 2-3 laps it would have. And you never know, it could have created a situation like what Charles went through. So maybe Ferrari really thought this is not the kind of strategy we want to again take a hit back on. If you get 10 points, so be it, kind of stuff. Maybe that's ran on their mind. And second was he had a 5-second penalty which he had to fulfill either in the race, or when he goes for the pit stop, or add it up at the end of the final time frame, right? But saying that, the momentum which he carried to overtake both Perez and Russell in a matter of about 2-3 laps, the timing of the pit strategy was wrong. He had just overtaken them. He was on a superb charge. He was the faster as compared to that. I would have said, let him run for a couple of more laps, bridge that gap from half a second to maybe 2.5 seconds more. And by the time he would have pitted, he could have come probably a little bit above, a Ricciardo or I think Alonso. I think he came like 7th or 8th after the pits, right? Maybe he could have joined at 6th and challenged these guys later. So the timing was wrong. I would give the benefit of doubt to Ferrari, saying, was the tire degradation? They didn't want to take a risk, so they pitted. Just the timing could have been managed much better. But saying that, it was a fabulous race for him. Even yesterday in the qualifying, he knew that, even if he takes a provisional pole, he cannot be seated there, right? So he did the second fiddle, he got the strategy right, got the pole for Charles. He drove a superb qualifying yesterday. So people knew that he has the pace and he has the agility. And I think he proved it today. He proved it from a 17th to a 5th with the fastest driver on the circuit. That I think is really coming up together. Where, to your question, Ferrari needs to get their strategy right. If they want to push whether a Charles or a Sainz to move up from a 5th to a 3rd, or get those couple of seconds more saved, they got to get their strategy right. And if they don't do it, I'll tell you, we are in fear, or we're going to have a problem where Charles or somebody might leave in the next couple of years. Because Charles is a very hungry person, right? He's already called as the next future champion, and this was the season supposed to be, correct? That's what Twinkle also talked about. But if the car doesn't perform reliable, if the strategy doesn't come up, who would want to stay, right? Who would want to struggle there? So you never know, if this keeps on happening by end of the season, we could be seeing one of the drivers step out and hold like a refresh happening in. So it boils down to how the car works properly, how the strategy works out. Like I'm putting my hand up and say that, hey, next weekend call me to Hungary. I'll be the weekend principal for you guys. Like I'll probably study overnight and still do a better job, right? I think I have that base knowledge to kind of help Sainz and Charles articulate what is needed, but they got to get their things right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Speaking of Hungary, which is next week, and Power Hungary and World Champion Hungary, I guess the question is more for Twinkle. Like, there've been rumors floating around with Hamilton. Like, what do you think his strategy is at this point?
Do you mean what rumors are you talking about? Are you talking about him at the end of this
I mean,
year?
this is a general wind of rumors, right? That he's
Yeah.
looking to retire or.
That's not gonna happen. I think because although I do see this a little bit with him nowadays, because if you remember his races early on, I don't remember which race it was. I think it was pre-Barcelona. I think it was one race before Barcelona when he had just come 9th or 10th. And I remember him going on the radio, are there even points for this?
Yeah.
And I saw how ecstatic he was with the second position. I know it's a great feat. I know with that car, I know it's improvement. But Lewis Hamilton should not be coming second no matter what. So I do see a little bit of change in him in the last 3-4 months, I believe.
Yes.
But I don't think he'll retire. I don't think that's going to go away. I think the break is going to be I think the summer break that we are going to have is going to be very, is going
crucial.
to be the main factor to determine how his next year is going to be really. Because if they come back from the break and they are able to perform at not this level, but a little better, I believe. If they're able to perform a little bit better from Belgium onwards, I believe. So I think that may give him a push in the morale. He might still dream of that 8th World Championship for the next year. So I don't see him retiring at least this year, but I don't know. I think the summer break is going to determine quite a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think I do assume that that's the best time for the lot of cars and the teams to kind of rework on their strategy, make any changes, because a couple of weeks will be gone in holidays. But once they're back, the mid-season's typically where they'll actually take a stock of, hey, what are the things which has not worked? And let's all remember the important part, that this is a brand new car. Everybody is running a brand new car from this season. So some people have got it right, some people have not got it wrong. We assumed Ferrari got it right, but looks like they haven't. Right? And we thought Mercedes is heading nowhere, but they are making slow and gradual progress. And what we will see is, if you see the Constructor Championship, Mercedes is catching up. If you see the Drivers' Championship, Russell is just 1 point to the difference of Sainz, right? So that pressure is going to add up to a team number 2 like Ferrari if they don't get things right, but that could ride easily on a Mercedes team who will say, oh, okay, I've come this far with an average car or a above average car. What if I make more changes and I could be gunning for the second position? Probably top title may be a little bit too challenging, but I think they can come to second.
Makes sense. So, I mean,
add to,
go ahead.
I think just to the same point, I think Ferrari may have gone in a little too soon with their idea of the favorite, right, Charles?
Yeah.
Because I think Sainz has been more consistent in this entire season. He has made fewer mistakes than Charles, but Ferrari has screwed up his strategy far more number of times than they have Charles. So they prioritize the wrong guy, I think. I think they should give Sainz a shot too, because I see him, I see it in him that he's also very consistent. So even if he's not winning all the races, at least he can be a consistent number 2. At least he'll finish all the races. At least he's getting the points. Because at this point, I think Charles just lagging at 60 points is a huge margin.
Yes.
For a car that's sort of better built, more reliable. It's supposed to be more reliable than Red Bull as well. They have the right pace. We saw Perez was no match for Sainz today.
Yes.
So it's very evident that Ferrari has the more superior car. Only if they try to not, I don't know if it's playing favorites, or I don't know what they're doing with Sainz's strategy particularly, because I don't see those many strategy mistakes with Leclerc's races usually. So I think it's mainly his fault, because I think he stumbles a little, which we've seen with most young drivers who've come into championships. I still think Leclerc is one of the most level-headed drivers out there, but I think he's been stumbling a little bit, fumbling around a little bit here and there. So I think they should also give Sainz a similar platform, I believe.
Okay, so we've been talking about, Mercedes upswing, Ferrari's performance, like my crypto portfolio. But as we reach this midpoint, what do you think is playing out at Red Bull? Right? It seems like they're comfortably placed. Initially, like we said, Ferrari seemed to be challenging them and they were going helter-skelter with that. But now as you get through midway point, Max seems comfortable in his spot. Perez has been consistent as their number two. He sparks brilliance sometimes, and then sometimes it's like today.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed bag, but what do you think is playing out at the Red Bull camp?
I think they're very well positioned with the World Championship this year. I think Perez also, he doesn't really make those many mistakes. Today was one of the very few occasions when Perez at Red Bull has made mistakes. Racing Point was a whole different story, but since he's been at Red Bull, he's barely made any mistakes. I think he's also a very strong contender. They're both very strong. Max, I don't know what got into him in 2021, but whatever it was, he's just at this extraordinary level where he's just very calm, very composed. But I do think that sometimes they are both very aggressive. But that's not cause of concern every race. Like it's supposed to. It's probably only gonna go wrong once. It's
Yes.
not really a huge cause for concern. It's not like it's gonna bring them down a lot. So I think they're very well positioned with both the World Championships this year.
And constant. Yeah, I think for me, if you see the first couple of races, right, they had a power issue, both the cars failed, and I think the first 5 races, I recollect if my stat stays right, Max finished 3 and he was number 1. The other 2 he kind of DNF, no points, right? So the first couple of races, I think it was a kind of a toss, right? People did not know how the car would perform, but at this point, after about to have the mid-season, I believe it's going to be very difficult to catch hold of Red Bull. They understood what their shortcomings were, they fixed it, and Max doesn't seem to have any pressure. Unlike last year, like as Twinkle was saying, there was immense pressure between Max and Hamilton, and typically between those two, they used to take turns as who's going to be at the pole. This year, the only addition is Charles has come in, but Charles is not converting the 2 points. So that's the advantage what Max is doing. Like today, he didn't do a foot wrong. He didn't put a foot wrong. All he had to do was get his car to the end line and get 25 points, and he did that. Now, why can't Ferrari do that? But going back to Red Bull, they are going to be extremely happy how they've gone through. But I will put a caveat to this state. This is exactly the kind of state what we were also in last year at the mid-season. Hamilton was gunning, Max was a little bit behind. The second half completely turned around. So unless you make certain mistakes or your competition comes back, like if Mercedes starts to really have a solid car with some upgrades in the mid-season, we could be having a 3-way tie-up. But saying that, I totally agree with Twinkle. It's going to be difficult to catch hold of Red Bull and Max. They're going to cruise, provided they don't just make silly mistakes like Ferrari. Otherwise, it's a 3-way race for us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about not the top 3 cars or constructors. I mean, Aston Martin's hit 100 years of racing, and to spice things up, the last lap, both the drivers just went at each other, took a chunk of each other also. Fortunately, it was at the literally the last mile.
Yeah.
So didn't really create any impact from a points perspective. Obviously, Vettel didn't get any points because he finished 11th.
Yeah.
But any insights that both of you want to share on any of the other cars that are playing out there? Because you have the Haas, you have AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo. Like all these guys have been having ups and downs throughout. We've seen a lot of excitement in the midfield this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Ricciardo's suddenly doing better than he was. I think he was in the beginning of the season. I think he was pretty horribly placed, honestly, but I think he's starting to do well. He still needs to find that pace that Lando has, but I think he's getting there slowly. Alpine's doing a fantastic job.
Yes.
Beginning of the season, nobody would have imagined Alpine fighting it out in the midfields as well. We were seeing a lot more of Bottas instead, but I think, I don't know what happened in these last couple of races, but I think Alfa Romeo has been struggling a lot with their car. Haas has found a decent place, but then keeps making silly mistakes. And then I think this race, the French GP, is still excusable because I think K-Mag took he started from the
back.
yeah, all the way in the back. So I think this race is still all right, but I think Haas is doing all right. I think they're getting some points here and there. So yeah, I think all the teams in the midfields are also shuffling around a lot.
How are you, Prashanth?
Definitely. I think for me, the underdog team which has performed really well is Haas, and this is what surprises me, that they have a Ferrari engine. Ferrari has Ferrari engine. So what's going on wrong, right? But yeah, I think except the Mick Schumacher's, he's in his just second year of professional F1 driving, but he's proven that he can actually do that. That's there. Alpine really good. Disappointing, definitely, from Bottas last couple of not even couple, I would say 3 to 4 races. He's not even come to points, where in the first 3 or 6 races he was consistent. He was actually he overtook Hamilton once. Let's all recollect that. I think I don't know if it's Hamilton or Russell, but he actually did that, right? So everyone was like, "Oh, are you really sure he's a Mercedes driver?" Correct. The most disappointing for me has been Aston Martin, right? Stroll struggling, except today he got a point. I don't know whether it was his first point. I need to really check the stat. Was it his first point this season, or he got a couple of more? Vettel seems to be inconsistent, but that team is absolutely struggling, and I know they got to do something to fix up their. And I don't see reliability issues, right? Meaning they're not having engine failures, they're not having mechanical failures. So it's going to either the strategy is going wrong, or drivers not competent enough, or making silly mistakes here and there. I would like to see Aston Martin give a bit of challenge to that F1 2.0, the bottom 4 teams, and try to come up. But my second half focus and attention will be, how does Mick Schumacher proves himself in a Haas, right? This is his second year, as we talked about. I predict that one more year he'll be at Haas if the performance runs and everything. After that, some other big team is going to grab him. He's got the talent, he's got the skill, he's got the name also. Correct. Now, how does he prove the name to points? He may not come to podiums, but what if he starts finishing more consistently in the top 6, top 7, get 8 points, 6 points, 10 points, and suddenly he starts to prove that he can get to Haas to a 5th or a 6th place in constructors? That would be a game changer. So there's a lot of good competition in between. Alpine's definitely doing great, and I would like to see more and more. Another disappointment purely from a driver is Gasly. Last year, Gasly had a fabulous year. He even, I think, I forgot whether he won last year or a couple of years ago in AlphaTauri. He was there. He won won podiums. He even had a pole finish once and all of that. But this year he's out of the picture. Like, people have forgotten him, and I don't know whether he's forgotten driving. Something is wrong with AlphaTauri, and especially with Gasly. And this being his home race, I was expecting something better. But no, I think Alpine just took it over, and Ocon has been playing really well. So I would like to see the bottom section a little bit more fight. Like last year, it was Max and Hamilton, and then there was a F1.5, right, which we all loved to the core. Okay, this time the pack has changed. There is actually, according to me, there are 3 sections. There's a top, there's a middle, there's a bottom. I would like to see the bottom teams come to the middle and have a little bit more fight.
Yeah, but I think one of the reasons why Gasly has not been doing particularly well this year is because some of the other teams have really stepped up their games.
Yes.
For example, Alpine was nowhere in the picture last year.
Correct.
Barely ever in the points. So I think that's one of the reasons why Gasly has not really been able to perform up to the level. Also, I don't think he's particularly adjusted well to the car this year, because Gasly is a very strong driver. I think I really like Gasly.
Yeah.
He consistently gave us P5s, I think, throughout 2021, 2020. He's also had wins. I really like I really like Gasly. I really like his driving style, but I think he's not very well adjusted to the car yet. But yeah, I'm really hoping that he can also turn things around for himself and do better in the second half.
Yeah, with that, I think next week's Hungary. After that, all the drivers can take a break and sort these things out because we're expecting a lot from them.
Yeah.
But I'm expecting something from both our panelists, and that is your predictions for Hungary.
I think Hungary is going to be similar, except for the fact that I think Charles going to do a better job this time. But I think it's going to be all three teams are very well placed within the first six somehow. The podium is going to be between Mercedes and sorry, just 1 second. Yeah, sorry, the podium is going to be between Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull. I think it's going to be 1-1-1 each from three teams.
Interesting. How about you, Prashanth?
I would say Ferrari, meaning I'm not going to trust any results till Sunday evening, right? Meaning we've seen the Saturdays going our way, Twinkle, not very happy, and suddenly there's opposite reactions on Sunday, right? Like today. I would wait till Sunday evening to really fulfill as to what's happening in. But saying that Max has a great chance, right? He's riding strong, he's riding consistent, less pressure for him. And I think somewhere at the back of his mind, he's already saying between the two Ferraris, one guy will goof up or the strategy will goof up so he can actually run the ride for it. I would definitely look forward for how Mercedes is going to come up with this double podium this race, and with just one more race for the mid-season break, they're going to be very, very aggressive to come back and gather more points before whatever changes they make. So I would probably put Max Hamilton in the top three definitely, and maybe the second or the third place could go to somebody else. But Max definitely is riding his strides right now.
Awesome. With those predictions in play, I'm going to thank both our panelists for taking their time out to share their thoughts and opinions about what happened today at the French Grand Prix, the whole entire weekend, and what's lined up for next week. With that, to our subscribers, bon nuit or good night. And please do like, share, and subscribe the Toast Network. Any comments that you have, thoughts that you have, why don't you share it out in the comments box, and we'd love to have you on our panel. With that, good night, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Merci.